From the shadows of Cybertron, the swarm is finally complete. In this week's spotlight of Venin, I'll show you unique display ideas, scale shots with the full Insecticon lineup, a step-by-step transformation, and all the tricks and tips you won't see anywhere else. Let's dive in, heroic nonsense style. Let's go. This week's spotlight is crawling with chills, and it's all due to the very creepy Age of the Primes Venin himself, who rounds out the Deluxe Insecticon set that started way back in 2022 with Ransack. I say creepy because out of all the Insecticons base and Deluxe, Venin, otherwise known as Venom, looks the most like an actual bug in his alt mode, and to be honest, it's a bit unsettling. Even so, I'm going to take you guys through this whole review, including some very special tricks to hide his extra weapons, some comparisons to some original 80s Deluxe Insecticon knockoffs, and one very unique idea for displaying him with some other Decepticons as part of a new ragtag team of bruisers. Stick around, this week's spotlight definitely has something for everyone. Venin, the paranoid leader of the Insecticons brought to life in his updated Age of the Primes form, was actually a figure I was somewhat excited to get. I never had the original 80s version, though I did have some knockoffs of the rest of the team, so I didn't really have any type of attachment to this particular subgroup. However, over the years, I've become quite the fan of the Insecticons themselves, especially the most recent iterations, and so getting the deluxe versions came naturally. As the last in the lineup, Venin was a must-have, and I'm pleasantly surprised about how much I actually enjoy him. He's definitely a unique looking figure, not a typical design at all, but he also sports these wild colors that just makes him such a fun figure to have. Yeah, there's a couple of spots they could have improved on, but overall, I'd say he's a great looking and a fun bot to add to your Insecticon collection. To be honest, I don't think I was much of a fan of the original 80s version from the little I saw of him, and that was partially due to his design, but this Age of the Primes update actually gives him a meaner and sleeker bot mode that really works. I believe they updated the colors a bit, specifically by adding darker green, but they also incorporated a lot of the design elements that worked, like those orange staggered leg armor pieces and the very cool chest design. I especially like how they tightened up his head, which now feels like it falls better in line with the other recent Transformers releases. He actually gives me Combaticon vibes, which I think totally works for this figure's design. The placement of his wings did throw me off a bit when we first got him though. Due to the location of the hinges, the wings have to rotate back under his arms, which doesn't let you tuck them away flush against his back. That essentially results in the wings sticking out this way and not letting his arms rest straight down. Took a bit of getting used to, but I actually quite like this creative idea for the design, which was actually based off of the original. From the back, you don't even really notice it, and mixed in with the bright red translucent wings, looks quite good with the legs all folding down as you see here. As for range of motion, it's very easy to position him on one knee in multiple configurations, which is great for displays. It definitely helps that his knee guard juts straight up and his foot folds in 90 degrees to make everything line up perfectly with the ground for extra balance. If you want an even more cinematic pose, that's also possible. In either form, Venin looks a really cool display this way. Though in this version, you do get a resulting gap between his foot and leg, which is better managed on other bots. Setting him up for a walking pose is a bit more finicky, but not by much, mostly due to his small feet. Regardless, he looks quite imposing this way, especially since his arms are forced to be pushed out this way due to the folded wings. I even managed to get him into a somewhat realistic running pose, which I'd say typically has a 50-50 chance of working with Transformers. Once you find that sweet spot, he stays perfectly upright, which again is what you want for displays. Like the original, he does come with two weapons, the laser we've seen so far and this mini axe, which is kind of a fun accessory to have. Better yet, it can combine with the laser to make a proper axe, which looks really good as well if you feel like giving him something other than a typical laser as his main weapon. Nice design to the axe, and I appreciate the extra bit of weather detailing they added to the blade part. However, if you're not into having an extra weapon lying around but don't want to separate them out, well, it can actually fit on his back slot. Something that the instructions don't show at all, and that I discovered since I like to find alternate places for weapons and such. I think it looks kinda good here. And isn't noticeable at all from the front, which is what you want if you want to mostly keep it out of sight for displays. Added mini bonus, the stinger on his head can be lowered slightly, if you prefer not to have it stick almost straight up, as it's technically supposed to do. Overall, a great figure, nicely designed with some unique elements specific to Venin. I also have to call out how much I love those translucent wings, which we'll see a lot more of in the alt mode review section. For me, like I mentioned at the start of the spotlight, he is definitely the most creepy of the bugs. Something about the way they mimic the body shape and wings positioning of the cicada, which is the insect he is based off of, makes him look like a real bug you could just see crawling his way up a leaf or your leg. And for that reason alone, I'd say this is one of the best insect alt modes I've seen. I also really appreciate the way it all compactly fits together in his alt mode. Just feels like a well built sturdy figure. Okay, so I had to start with this still, and I mean, come on, look at it. Does that not look like a bug you'd not want to see a swarm of in your backyard? Everything from the bug eyes to the outstretched legs adds to the impression that the designers really wanted to go all in on this one. And what's really cool is that it gives you that impression from every angle, front, back, side, whatever. Yes, it's obviously a robotic looking insect with sharp edges, but as far as 80s Insecticons go, it's the closest to what the bug would actually look like. The wings are what really do it for me. I love the red they use, but they also curved the wings slightly and added the veins, which to me really makes this alt mode work. I prefer to keep the legs tight to the ground, but you can raise them slightly to give this type of look as well. And once you start playing with the wings, you start getting a good idea of how many realistic ways there are to display them in this mode. And again, don't know how they hit it so on the mark, but with the wings raised like this, you can't tell me this doesn't actually look like what a real bug would look like. I personally like having them a bit off, which gives it a bit more dynamic feel to Venin's alt mode. Like something you'd really see in nature if the bug was walking around on a plant. And the range of motion is extensive. You can easily find the right fit for you. One thing that always bugs me, pardon the pun, is when there isn't a great place to attach the weapons and they just get tacked on to the side somewhere. Well, I discovered a great place to keep the laser if you want to keep it close by, even in insect mode, and that's right underneath the body. Again, this isn't shown at all in the instructions booklet, but it can easily slot in this way. And from most angles isn't even noticeable. You do have to keep the bug in this more upright position though, with the legs a bit higher off the ground. I'm fine with just the laser, so I don't care much for the axe. However, if you really wanted to keep it on Venin in insect mode, you could attach it this way. Not perfect, but way better than having it just stick out on the side of the body. I'm perfectly fine keeping his laser close by in his alt mode and just leaving the soft altogether. So yeah, definitely one of the most realistic robotic looking Insecticons out there. What do you guys think? Did they hit the mark on this design? Let us know in the comment section. Now let's see how he fits in and scales with the rest of the Insecticons, starting with his own crew, the Deluxe Insecticons. They're all here and they look great together. I think my favorite is still Chop Shop. I just love his colors and design, but these guys do look good next to each other. As do the rest of the Deluxe Insecticons, which all generally match in style and height. And the wings on these two guys do look great together, both using the same translucent bright colored cues. As for the Insecticons proper, since all the deluxe designs are based off of the baseline versions, these guys all line up the same way, which is great. As much as I like these Deluxe Insecticons, I still prefer the originals due to their designs, color scheme, and cohesiveness as a team. All 7 do look incredible together, and this on its own would make for a really great display. And we're now at the full 7 Insecticons. That's amazing. The bug modes are equally as impressive next to each other and are definitely a fun, bright addition to the Decepticons. I think the first 3 look best together. I actually placed them in this order on purpose. I feel they transition from one to the next best this way. Do you guys agree? Individually, they're just so much fun to look at next to each other. I totally love these designs and I always have, especially as compared to the later, more realistic Beast Wars looking insects. I like chunky, robotic looking figures even when they're bugs. And that's due in no small part to the original Insecticons, which led the way for this type of angular insect look, which still holds up so well and is so iconic. This is also one of the rare cases where I don't know which mode to keep these guys in, bot or alt, because they both just look so damn good together. I only really got into the Insecticons as I got older, but if you're like me and dig the Insecticons, their lore and design, these guys are a must-have for your collection. And here's a little bonus. Yes, I never had the official Transformers Insecticons growing up, but I did have these knockoffs, which I played the hell out of. I believe these 3 came together, and I don't recall there being a 4th. While they were mostly copies of the originals, the Spiderbot was definitely its own thing. Not sure where he came from, but as a kid, I considered him an official Insecticon. Minus the colors and perhaps quality, though they have held up exceptionally well over the years, these are generally the actual Deluxe Insecticon designs, so at least for Barrage and Ransack, we have something to compare them to. You'll just have to stretch your imagination for the last bot. I never had a name for him, but funny enough, he was my Insecticon leader just like Venin is. These guys transformed are also totally fun to have together. I did notice though that as compared to the base Insecticons, the deluxe versions were a bit more rounded and detailed, which would have been interesting to see as unique modern designs. While the spider may have been his own thing, he was definitely a perfect addition to this team. Alright, let's transform this guy, and he's actually pretty straightforward. So what we're going to do first is we're going to start with the head, and we're just going to swivel it forward like this. And then we'll take his arms and we'll just push in the fists. Mine are a little bit loose and the fists tend to fall off, which is not my favorite, but just be careful about that. Now we're just going to lift up the arms and push them in. We've seen this kind of transformation with the Earthrise Seekers. So we're going to do the same kind of thing here. Now we're just going to push these arms in, and you can use this kind of like plastic plate underneath the arm to help push it in. So just, there you go. And then just swivel the arms down 90 degrees, flush against the body. And now you can see these tabs here. We're going to tab them right there. So you're just going to push the head right back up and it clicks in place. Then just push the stinger in like that. Now we'll flip it around and we'll lift up the wings to get them out of the way. And we'll move down to the legs where we'll push in the feet. And then we'll open up this part like so. And we'll rotate the legs out 90 degrees. And lift up the bottom portion like that. We'll do the same on the other side. You can move the arms out of the way. I like to. You could technically leave them there, and then you just gotta push these legs in like that to form basically the body. And then you can put the arms back in. They fit right flush against the legs. Just make sure everything's tight. Click everything in. And now we're pretty much done. All we have to do is open up the legs the way you want. I usually make mine look like this. Push down the wings or leave them up. And he's now ready to devour some energon. As I said earlier, this is the way to go for displays, having the 4 of them together. And they do look fantastic. Even more so when you add in the Insecticons. But I wouldn't be doing my job if I just left you with the most obvious ways to display these guys. And so I came up a while ago with this new team of, for lack of a better word, Decepticon wreckers. Basically all our figures which didn't really have a place in our main displays for whatever reason, but also sported a similar feel or look to them. This is definitely my own world building here, but I just feel this group looks like they were meant to be together. So yeah, this is our display right now for the Deluxe Insecticons. How do you plan on displaying yours, and do you have your own lore or team-ups? Share below. You can't have Insecticons without having some Energon to munch on, especially if they're heavy on the electrons. I took these Energon cubes from the Transformers blockies that we have now started collecting as well, and I really like using these for displays and shots. But sharing is caring, so having all of the Insecticons in their alt modes devouring Energon is the way I would totally display these guys in insect mode. I actually really like this idea, and if we ever decided to transform them and keep them in their alt modes in our collection, this is the way we do it. Let's take it up a notch and get some heavy hitters in as well, and that means bringing in the biggest insect of them all, Scorponok. I really love these guys together. What a perfect build and matchup, especially since they all sport similar design cues. They even look great together in bot mode, with Scorponok having his own unit of Insecticons to act as his first line of defense in battle. I'm still amazed at how big the Titans are. I mean, these guys don't even make it up to his knees, and that's exactly the way it should be. Go big or go home. And while we're on the topic of Titans, let's end this section off with the first of his kind from back in the day, Omega Supreme. We always display him attacking Decepticons, though they're usually the core class, which just looks so good in that size up against Omega. But these guys work just as well, though slightly bigger, and if you're going to squash a bug, you need to have Omega doing it, crushing them in his claw. We collect both G.I. Joe and Transformers, and I'm so happy that Transformers decided to stay with the great front panel cover art. It's such a bonus having some nice box art of the toys right on the front. And always nice to get a close-up on the side panel as well, with great traditional comic book inspired designs, which has always been my favorite. You get the nice Age of the Prime's back of pack design with clear shots of Venin and his weapons, rounded out with the other side panel showcasing, you guessed it, 3 of the 13 Primes. So that's it for this week's Creepy Crawly Spotlight. I hope you enjoyed, and I inspired you to create your own lore and displays. If I have, please let the Heroic Nonsense community know in the comments section, and we'd love to hear all about it. Thanks for watching, And remember, it's all such heroic nonsense in the end.
Bravo!